All right, all right, all right, all right. Now can you hear me? Put that fire emoji in the chat if you can hear me now. Okay, okay. So you can hear me now. You can hear me now. Yes, sir. Class is in session. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. Okay, okay, okay. We got a few heads in the building. My bad, y'all. I forgot to hit that live button. I forgot to hit that live button. I do apologize. But it looks like we got it going now. All right, y'all. So what y'all see on the screen is a video, a little short, that caused a whole lot of comments, man. A whole lot of fur moms came out the woodwork, right? Talking greasy about my little baby here. You know what I mean? Woo! My brother Asiatic with the $9.99 super sticker. That's what I'm talking about. That's much love, bro. That is much love. Let's go, man. That's what I'm talking about. Much love, black man. Much love. That's what I'm talking about, man. Gotta learn to support one another, man. If we don't do it for each other, man, who is going to? You know what I mean? Yeah, man. So tonight I want to talk a little bit, man, about what is an underfed, undernourished, or starving dog compared to a super fit dog, right? Because when I posted this little short video, um, I expected people to make comments about, her going after the animal in the hole, and maybe even a couple of comments about, her about us being in the cemetery. But they went in on my baby talking about how skinny she is, and we had one stupid fool asking if I even feed the dog. So I felt it was like compulsory, man, to address some issues here tonight. You understand? We gonna address some issues. That's what I'm talking about. We got Astro T in. Hold on. Let me blow this up because my eyesight ain't the best. Ask for TA James in the building. Said morning greetings. It is 2:27 a.m. GMT England time. England in the building, y'all. England is in the building. Huh? Much love to our brothers and sisters from across the pond, our bulldoggers from across the pond. Ooh. Looks like we got some wolfhound on deck. That's what I'm talking about. Shout out to my brothers from across the pond, man. Tony M in the building, always showing support. Much love, fam. Much love, much love. Salute, salute. Brandon Blue in the building says she is perfect. Absolutely. Shout out, man. While we at it, man, y'all punch in your locations, man. Punch in your locations. Let me see where folks is from, man. Right? We got my brother from across the pond. My brother Asiatic, where you at right now? I know you stay on the road, brother. Where you at? Oh, Asafa. And she is a sister. My apologies, sis, but peace and blessings. I appreciate you being in the building. That's what's up. Brandon Blue in Greensboro, North Carolina. Hold on, let me make sure I stand corrected. Asafa. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that right, sis. Where the emphasis goes on your name. Brandon Blue in Greensboro, North Carolina. Asiatic Soldier in New Jersey by way of Brooklyn. Huh? That's what I'm talking about. My brother Rob Keener. Shout out, Rob. What's good with you, bro? Steady supporter. Astafar said, greetings, panel. The weather is confusing, though. We indulging in Shaji powder in water. You're going to have to put me on to all that, I'm not familiar. So please, enlighten a brother. I'm always up to learn something. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now, Astafar, let me ask you, were you born in England or were you born elsewhere and migrated to England? What is your country of origin? See, that's what I suspected. Asafar is a Kush name, Ethiopian. Indeed. I suspected as much. Well, I didn't suspect Ethiopian, but I knew it was not England born. Let me put it that way. It's not an English name. A brown powder prevents cancer. That's the Shaji. Is that how it's pronounced? Shaji powder? And does that come from Ethiopia? Is that native to Ethiopia? Because you definitely putting us on to something, sis, and I love it. I love all of it. Ethiopia. Yes, sir. Please enlighten us. I should say, yes, ma'am. Please enlighten us. Shagai powder. Shagai powder. Is that how it's properly pronounced? Shagai powder. Asafar says our regular substance is Buna coffee and injerfa bread. Woo! Okay. I'm gonna need some of that. I'm gonna need some of that. Yellow One in the building. What's good, bro? What is good, man? Indeed, the family is here. The family is here, man. I appreciate each and every one of y'all, man. I want to thank y'all for falling through. It is always a pleasure to get on this platform and build a little bit. And I do apologize that I can't be on this joint every day because really, if I had my way, we would be here every day. Absolutely. Okay, wait a minute. I got to get my pronunciations correct. Injera bread. Injera bread. Says we might have to get you. You know what? I'm going to actually depart from the script that I had laid out for a minute. And sis, if you can hop on here, Sister Asifa, if you can hop on here, I'm going to put this link in the chat. And I want you to enlighten me, please. And I will explain to you exactly why yesterday I tuned into Rashad Jamal's situation. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, Sister Asifa, I have put the link in the chat. Let me go ahead and share that right quick. There's a little lag, so bear with us. Okay, there it is. Let's go ahead and let's open it up tonight. Why not, right? Why not? Now, I have to be fair to y'all that we only here till, let's say, 10:30 this evening. So whatever y'all want to cook on, we can cook on. Yes, please, Asifa, please hop on. It's actually very fortuitous that you are on with us tonight because I've been following some of the recent events on the continent, especially have some questions about what's been going on over there and how the people are receiving it. Sister Asafar said, yesterday I tuned into the Rashad Jamal situation. Oh my gosh. Okay. You are definitely going to have to enlighten me. So for those of y'all who may not know, there's definitely been a situation going on in West Africa that could literally tilt us into a serious global situation. The brother Soul Power was doing his live last night, and I believe it was last night. Y'all got to forgive me. My time is, I be in the ether sometimes. But the brother, had posted on his live. You know, he says that we could be on the brink of World War III. You know, and people were talking about how they were preparing for that. You know, in terms of getting equipment together, so forth and so on. And it looks like what's happening on the continent right now is, okay, Sister Asafar, here you go. Let's get you in the building.
Morning.
I'm going to stop sharing this. Give me 1 second. I see you, sis. Give me 1 second. I got you. Let me get this off the screen here. All right, stop the screen. Booyaka. There you go, sis.
Morning,
all right,
greetings.
Peace and blessings.
Blessed love.
All
Morning,
right.
greetings on the panel.
Now, first of all, would you pronounce your name for us?
Yes, greetings, love and salutations. My name is Asafa. The name
Asafa.
is a Cushite name from the land of Ethiopia.
Meaning what?
It means woman of grace.
Wow, that is beautiful. That is absolutely
Excuse
beautiful.
me, Brendan, I wear the sunglasses, the new technology and the beast, you know.
That's all right. That's all right. I respect it. We have to be careful nowadays. There's a lot going on.
Oh, Brendan, I tell you, I was out yesterday in the city of London, and trust me, half of the day was sunny, and towards the end of the day, it was like a funny kind of dust. Half of the street was just coughing. I had to run home.
How long have you been living in London now?
Oh my God, what's going on?
Can you hear me? Looks like you froze up a little bit. Sometimes there's a lag, so you got to be a little patient with this whole
Oh
thing.
yeah. Sorry, Bridget, I lost you for like 50 seconds.
No worries. I'm glad you back in, because right now I got you frozen on screen. So as long as we can hear you, we can go ahead and get into some things. Now, you were saying that you were out in London yesterday and the weather changed sharply. What happened?
Yeah. Serious. I decided to go to the city of London, and I was there like early afternoon, and I noticed the sun, it was quite hiding. The sky was really gray. And then when I decided to leave, maybe about 2 hours later, the sky was completely burning with such a red sun. Everybody was coughing, like everybody had some kind of bronchitis. Everybody on the pavement was coughing, apart from me. Yeah, I was horrified. I just went into my mother tongue, done a little prayer, and I didn't even get the train. I just walked all the way home.
Whoa. Did they announce publicly what was the cause of this?
Well, when I spoke to some Caucasians, you know, they were saying, oh, maybe the helicopter for cough. No, I believe it's deeper than that. And also, you know, like the conkers, lately all the conkers have gone rotten, and they've got like a funny kind of dusty green going on, you know. So every day I make sure I drink up my little shaggy powder with my hot water, and then I hit the street. You know, me and my dog, we make sure we indulge in the shaggy powder.
Shagai, that's how it's pronounced. Okay.
Yeah.
And the shagai comes from Ethiopia.
Well, originally, it's like an Indonesian ancient mushroom. It's like an old time kind of mushroom with a bit of fungi, but the fungi is good for like the human consumption as well as the dog consumption, you know.
Okay. So that what exactly does it do for the body? Can you hear my question? Looks like you froze up again, sis, but that's all right.
Oh, yes.
So what is it that Shagai powder does for the body?
Well, to be honest, Bridget, it prevents cancer, mucus, headache, and another thing, Bridget, on the panel, chocolate, eating chocolate, milk chocolate, dark chocolate, it creates mucus in the esophagus slowly but surely. And eventually you find out it's no good for actual human consumption. Chocolate, milk chocolate, any kind of chocolate.
Okay. So the Shagai powder can actually be given to the dog as well. It's good for the canines. It looks like we definitely.
Oh my God, this is madness. In my mother tongue, I say Inja Fatasha. Oh my God, the live is cutting in and out. It's chipping. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I definitely catch you freezing up now and then. Let me ask you, what kind of dog do you have?
I have an Alsatian cross wolf.
Wow. Wow. How'd you come across that?
My neighbor, she's from Australia, and she said to me, Atafa, here, this dog will protect you. The main thing is you have to be out every day. I said, listen, in my culture, we run, we climb, we carry water every day. I will take the dog as long as the dog doesn't piss the house,
That's right.
And
that's right.
they kept saying to me like, oh, this dog, every time we go to play with her, she pisses. And the other dogs in the house, she pisses. So I said, well, maybe the other dogs, maybe they bully her, or maybe they're not conscious, They shouldn't treat the smallest dog like that. It's not good. And I realized it's not that the dog is silly or the dog has no sense. They didn't have enough adjustment for this kind of dog. So when I looked into her breed and I went to the vet in Southeast London, they said to me, be mindful, Kush is a half wolf. She operates like a clock. Half of the day, she's tired. And the rest of the day, she's active and she'll do many things. But just be mindful, she's a half wolf.
Ah. That makes all the difference in the world.
I tell you. And I said, oh. So I started to wake up like 4 a.m. And when I'm looking like she's fast asleep, she's not even obnoxious. But as soon as like I open the door or as soon as I go in the kitchen, she'll be wide awake. And I said, oh, maybe she's got the munchies, So I made some food. I made some traditional injera, gave her some chicken, a bit of beef, a bit of raw egg, some.
Okay. The brother Asiatic Soldier says they call them Alsatian on the island of Barbados as well. Okay.
Right, what's going on? So, and I tell you, she wanted every bag of dry food. And I said, my God, these are, she's never seen so much like indulgence in different kind of flavor. So I bought the biggest one. Is James Well Beloved. And I realized she struggled to eat this biscuit. So my neighbor said to me, a different neighbor from Bangladesh, he said to me, give her 4 eggs with the biscuit and she will eat it. And to be honest, she started to play cricket with the rest of the food,
Now, how big is she?
Well, I'm not very good at like mathematics, but in weight, they say she's like 68 kilos.
Wow. That's a 124-pound, 125-pound dog.
Oh, I see. Well, she looks like that when she bites or when she goes to jump. Oh, yeah, she looks much bigger.
Woo. She looks bigger than 125 pounds. Wow, that's that's a big dog. It takes a lot
Yeah,
to handle that. How long have you had her now?
I've had her about a year and a half. And to be honest, Panel and Bridging, she's so protective. Oh my Jah. In our mother tongue, we say Exabi her. That means all praises to the Creator. Exabi her. And I tell you, it is because the fly, the spider, the bee, the flying ant, especially people, when she sees people looking at me without me even looking, she's ready to pounce. She throw her back like a snake and she's in the air. And sometimes
Mm.
people look at her like she's a teddy bear. And I say, excuse you, she's not a teddy bear, it's a real dog, you know? And I said,
Right,
I know
right.
she's serious. Yeah, she don't play. Even the police, right? They said to me, we like this dog, Asafa. But one thing, put a muzzle around her. That way people know for her not to stare. So she walks with a Mickey muzzle on her collar. And the only time I put it on her is like if I go in the shops and I'm there maybe 10, 20 minutes, Otherwise, she just has the Mickey muzzle on her collar. I walk with my water in my bag.
Now, do you allow people to approach her and pet her, or do you basically let them know, hey, she's not for that? I apologize, fam. Okay, there you go. So do you allow people to pet the dog, or do you keep them at bay and let them know, hey, this dog is not to be petted?
Is she? Of course. Yeah, I let them know from a good distance, Don't put your
Right. They stick their hand out there, they may lose it.
where some people with children, especially young children, I notice the children they run wild, like they're in the playground. And when they get within maybe half a yard of my dog, they're pointing. And I say to the mother or whoever's with them, are you mentally disturbed? Control the child. It's not a teddy bear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Most people are
Mm.
just not educated about what it takes to handle a working breed kind of
A
dog, or
working
a
breed,
dog with a lot of
a clever
energy.
dog that knows herself, a dog that's come from a home of other dogs bullying her. People, they think it's a teddy bear.
Now, you alluded to something earlier. You said you tuned into the Rashad Jamal situation.
Finger, and she's onto you. Yeah, she jumps, she tear them down. Sometimes she shout in their face. We're not here to be, taking the mickey. And I tell them, if you go to the barracks in Woolwich in London, southwest London, southeast London, I'm sure you can't play with their dogs. What makes you think you can just like
Right, right. Most people don't have that presence of mind. Most people don't have that presence of mind.
oh yes.
If you would take a little bit, take a minute to tell me a little bit about the Rashad Jamal situation. Sis, I'm not sure what's going on. You double check your connection because you keep freezing up here. And I'm pretty sure there's a lag coming from okay, there we go. All right, the sister is going to check. The sister Al-Safa is going to double check her connection. She'll be right back with us. My brother Asiatic said the Alsatian German Shepherd is the all-around breed. Okay. Okay. She mentioned that the dog was half wolf, so I, that kind of caught me. But let's proceed, if we will, in the interim, in the meantime, with with this situation, right? So we have a lot of people, man, that seem to feel like a dog with this particular appearance is somehow undernourished. And I wanted to address this because the people who are making these claims, I check everybody out. I went and checked out their channel and the whole 9 yards. And sure enough, most of these people, one in particular, they got some bully looking thing laying up on the couch underneath the blankets, treating it like it's half human, obviously not a working dog. You understand? So many people don't understand what they see when they look at a dog like Tata. Tata right now is probably in the best shape of her life. She wasn't in this condition when she first came to me last December. The comments were to the effect of, oh, I can see her ribs, right? And that's something that is fairly natural for us. To us, we should see a little rib on the dog, especially when the dog is engaged in real energetic activity, and the lungs are working, right? When the lungs start working, the ribs expand. So you're going to see some rib on the dog when the dog is doing this type of work, right? Okay, the sister Asifa is back with us. Here we go.
I was chatting for so long. I can't believe it. I was disconnected.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It seems like there's an issue with your connection because you keep freezing up, and then
Yeah.
for a while we just lost you altogether.
Oh my God, it's okay because the Lion of Judah will break every chain. But yeah, I'm back.
That's right. That's right. So what we
So
were discussing
kind of
is the fact that I posted this video that you see on the screen here. I'm sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I posted this video that you see on the screen here, and
yes,
got a lot of negative comments about the dog's build. We got a lot of negative comments. People assuming that I was not feeding this dog, right?
Let me have a quick look with my naked eye. Hold on. Oh, yes.
So,
yes, go ahead, brother.
Fact, let me see. I may have another video here. But the whole point being that let me get back here. about the
Oh,
physique on a
I'm saying
working
it's an
dog.
honor, to be in the live. Such an honor. Time I'm
Tony M said America is so comfortable with that. And it's and, and there's a whole thing about, you would think that these people would look at this dog and they wouldn't body shame the dog. Obviously, she's a small dog.
They need to
Very
check their
fine
health
bone.
and leave the
She has a
younger
very
alone.
slender head. But if they don't see 100-pound dog, then they think that the dog is starving, right? So I was literally accused of not feeding the dog. People were saying, you know, calling me out my name, saying, feed the dog. And my question to this guy, and the purpose of keeping a dog fit and trim is so that the dog's system is constantly working. Blood is flowing, toxins literally are being removed from the body on a regular basis at a consistent pace. And so when people assume things, you know how that goes. They make an ass of themselves, right? Because you can't make an ass of me. You can make an ass of you, but you can't make an ass of me.
You know.
It's one of those things that the public really needs to be educated on what a fit working dog is supposed to look like.
Exactly, hairy, Miss Skin.
Right?
Yes.
If I bring this dog out now, give me 1 second. Female. I'm gonna actually show y'all this here. So give me a second.
Yes.
Give me
Take your
1
time,
second.
Redfield. The stream is let me stand at the balcony. Maybe the
Let's
stream
go
get
ahead
better.
and remove this.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
All right. Yes. I'm going to activate this camera right quick. All right. All right. So they claim that they could see the
God,
ribs on
yes.
the dog while she was actually
Gosh.
kind of working, right? And the big difference between a dog, right, that is underfed and undernourished is that the skin is very loose on the dog. The skin literally hangs off the dog's bones. When you look at this dog, you see how her skin snaps back like a rubber band? That is a very fit and healthy dog, right? The people can't understand that. They think that this dog, with her slender bone, she's a very fine bone animal, right? Not a 120-pound dog, right? She's lucky if she's 40 pounds, right? And the people swear that this dog should be 100 something, you know, like they swear that the dog is not being fed. To be accused of not feeding the dog, right? And it's so funny because, don't worry, sis, we got you. Give me 1 second here. is going on here? What is going on? Give me a second, y'all. Stuff acting crazy around here. Okay, there we go. All right. So to assume that the dog is not being fed because you can see her ribs while she's working and breathing. She's trying to eat my food, y'all. So yeah, I got a bowl up here and she's trying to get in it. But the whole thing is really bizarre because you can see that this dog, her skin is so tight, it snaps back like a rubber band, right? All that's saying is that this dog is very, very fit, right? She's literally filling out her frame almost to maximum capacity.
True.
We have seen this dog running and running and running. I posted subsequent to the short I just showed you guys. I posted another video that showed her in her regular resting place, if you will, and she was running back and forth constantly, like she wouldn't stop. She was going for hours. By the time I recorded it, you know, she had already been going for hours. She had been exercised multiple times. And so I just want to take a minute to say, you know, to all those who seem to feel like they know what's best for a dog, because you see a little rib on a dog does not mean that that dog is malnourished. It doesn't mean that the dog is underfed. You can see good muscle definition on this dog, and you can definitely see that, you know, there's no lack of water. There's none of that. This dog is extremely, extremely fit. She keeps herself that way. Her energy level itself should tell you that the dog is eating quite well, because you can't run like that if you have no if you have no fuel in your system, right? So in the thumbnail to this video, I actually posted a picture of what a starving dog looks like. And of course, y'all know that not one of those people showed up to have anything, you know, they didn't have anything to say. Tony M said, if the dog was obese, they would say she's so cute. Right. Exactly. One of the people that was making this comment had the dog laid up on the couch underneath the covers, you know, just looking like a couch potato, like a good old couch potato. People just complain or just comparing her to everything else they think, right? They think is an American Pit Bull Terrier, which is more than likely some type of bully. But the girl can definitely eat. Wait a minute. All right, sister, we got you back in. You keep dropping down.
Oh, hallelujah.
We back with you. Don't worry about it. So
hallelujah. I'm on the balcony. This bloody network killing me.
I can imagine. So,
yeah.
One of the things that, you know, someone asked about, you know, they saw some of my other dogs, like the dog in my profile picture. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull that up again. But they saw the dog in my profile picture. They asked, how is that even possible? Right. And when it comes right down to it, there's a very real method to conditioning a dog, to bringing a dog to its fullest physically and bringing its physique into a full blossom, so to speak. Many people serve the kibble, you know, many people use dry dog food, and that is, it's not an issue if you can serve the kibble properly, right? There's a certain way you want to serve kibble, especially when you're talking about conditioning a dog, right? You're trying to get that dog in max shape and max condition. Kibble is predominantly carbohydrates, right? And carbohydrates they produce as a byproduct something called glucosamine, right? And glucosamine is a sugar. But what happens is when there's glucosamine in the system, it provides energy, but usually there's a spike in that energy, right? That energy spikes shortly after, say within a half hour after it's been fed. And then there's a noticeable drop off. And when I say a noticeable drop off, it's you can see almost like the energy drain from the dog immediately, right?
Yeah.
So there's a spike in increase, and then there's a spike in the decrease. And most people who are serving kibble don't understand that about the kibble that they're serving, right?
Even
Even if you have a high protein, a high fat kibble, right? Like I serve the Diamond High Energy, 24%, I believe 24% crude protein, 20% crude fat. And she still outruns that stuff, right? To the point where you can almost see that there's almost no fat on this dog, right? A truly active dog needs that extra fat. They need that extra fat in the diet because they're gonna burn it off, right? Whereas with a couch potato, you don't want to serve something with extra fat and extra protein because the dog is not going to use it, right? The dog is going to. So then you have your carbohydrates on top of the fat, on top of the protein, unused proteins, and now what you're looking at is possible health issues on your dog. So while raw feed, for me personally, is always the best feed. I believe in serving the raw chicken. I believe in serving the raw pork roast. I believe in serving the ground beef. You know, preferably for a dog as active as she is, 73% lean, 27% fat. And what you'll find is that the dog is actually burning through that stuff in a way that is I should say more beneficial, right, to the body than anything else. Another thing people don't understand about kibble, you can grade your kibble, and this is gonna sound a little strange, y'all, but you can grade your kibble by the color of the stool that the dog produces after eating it. If you're getting a light, soft stool, you know, a light colored soft stool, that's usually a very poor kibble. It is usually a very poor kibble. The darker, the more compact the stool, the healthier the feed that's going into the dog.
I agree.
The people that make all of these claims about how skinny she is, right? They make all of these claims about how skinny and how undernourished she is are probably the people that feed Old Roy, right? They feed Dog Chow. They feed all of these kibbles that are just absolutely garbage. They produce a mound of blonde, just mush. Oh, she's beautiful. She's beautiful.
Thank you.
That whole dynamic, right? Like for instance, you have the brothers Samurai Kennels, and he's been basically I don't want to say creating, but he put together the concept of a digital dog show, right?
What?
The dogs could literally, where people on the internet could kind of show their dogs, especially the American Pit Bull Terrier, and they can send in their submissions of the dog, working, or the dog in motion, as well as the dog standing still, and side view, front view, all of that kind of stuff. you have a lot of brothers, man, that are heavily conditioning, brothers and sisters that are heavily conditioning their dogs. And many people are, kibble is the go-to feed for most people. But if you're not using that kibble properly in your conditioning program, then chances are you're not getting the most that you can get out of the dog. All right, let me say that again. If you're not using kibble properly in your conditioning program, you are not going to be able to peak that dog out properly, because the glucosamine side product has almost a half-hour shelf life, right? And I'm giving y'all some game. I'm not entering in the digital dog show this go around, because I got a lot on my plate, and really bringing these dogs to where I would like them to be is just not in my schedule right now. But I will share this, that the glucosamine that is produced as a result of feeding the dog kibble pretty much has a half-hour shelf life. If you find that you take your dog out and you flirt pole your dog, or you spring pole a dog, and the dog seems to kind of run short after a half hour or so, or it starts to gas out after about a half hour or so, it doesn't have the same energy after 20 minutes to a half hour, that is literally a direct result of the glucosamine spike and crash that comes from kibble. Kibble is pretty much predominantly, I want to say most kibbles are, you're talking 60% to 80% of carbohydrates. And when you understand the digestive system of a dog, you understand that dogs have very little use for carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is something that we introduced into the dog's diet, right? Rob Keener says the vet standard for a healthy pet dog is to see the outline of the ribs. People think a dog is a happy dog.
It's
to overfeed their dogs, because the kibble doesn't provide the protein and the fat, and fat is essential to a dog. Fat is essential to a dog, right? It needs those reserves. Fat is kinetic energy, right? It's like having a battery on standby, right? It's like having a battery that's on a charger and waiting to be put into use. That's what fat does for a dog. So if the dog doesn't have enough fat in the diet, then the dog is not going to be able to last longer once the proteins and the amino acids have run their course through the dog. So I just want to leave that little jewel right there for y'all. Everybody that's conditioning your dogs for the digital dog show and entering dogs in that's just a little jewel. Right? Keep that in mind. Your carbohydrates are not designed to last very long.
True.
Away from that bowl. That's my food. That's not yours. My foot. Go drink. Go drink. Go drink. She said that saying, I want what you got in that bowl. But
she wants you to share with her.
There's nothing but pasta in that bowl, right? And that pasta is because when I leave here, I have to go to work, and I have a physically demanding job, right? And so that in itself is going to give me that burst of energy that I need for the first half hour, because I haven't slept in about 24 hours. It's just going to kind of keep me on my feet and keep me going. Now I'm going to add some chicken to that pasta, right? Because that's my protein, right? And these are the things that the same things we would put in our bodies, right? And as active people, these are the same things you want to, you want to apply these same principles and concepts to the dog, is my point.
Yeah.
So now, no, mind you, she just ate. But if I were to just give her food just because she sees food and wants food, then I'm gonna end up with a fat, lazy dog on my hands.
She's gonna be obese.
Right. And in this area where I am, that's all people do. That's all people. I mean, many of the people in this area are just. I used to do like the DoorDash and Uber Eats thing, right?
Oh yeah.
And when you walk into these fast food restaurants, you look at the people that are in there, and they all look like, plus size.
Yeah. Plus size.
See their ankles are like this, right? They're rich. Layers of fat upon fat upon fat.
Oh my God. It's an insult to the human race.
How can you possibly function and be comfortable in that fashion? Right?
Oh my God.
Somebody once told me that if you look in the mirror and don't like what you see, how can you expect someone else to like it? and that is so true. It's so true. It's so true. Many people expect other people to accept them unconditionally, but when they look at themselves, their own internal dialogue is not something that accepts them unconditionally. They have an internal dialogue that when they look in the mirror, they don't like what they see. And that's to me, I call that the self-accusing spirit, right?
Yeah.
Call it a conscience, call it what you want. I call it the self-accusing spirit. It's that part of us that does not allow us to accept our own BS. We know when we're doing wrong by the body, right? Many people who would call themselves Christians and etc., they're actually supposedly part of the doctrine that the body is the temple, right? The body is the temple of the living God.
And it's part of the Orthodox Tawadro faith that we serve. Fasting is a very important practice.
Absolutely. So if the temple is not a thing of beauty, what God would want to live there, right? If the temple is not a structure that is sound and held up well, right? Can a truly can a truly living spirit abide with that, right? Be just okay with that. So you, on the one hand, you have people saying that, you shouldn't disrespect these people, and nobody should be disrespected. But you shouldn't highlight these physical attributes of these kinds of people, because that's called body shaming.
No.
Well, we're not talking about body shaming in the sense that there are plenty of people who are just large in stature and size by nature, right? They were born that way. There are many people who have inherited this overproduction of fat cells from their parents, right? It's actually a gene pool, this tendency to store more fat than the proper proteins, amino acids, etc. So while those people are not to be held at fault, neither should they themselves get comfortable with that condition. Does that make sense? So to all of those people out there who seem to feel like a slender dog, a well-defined dog, is somehow undernourished, underfed, or even
Madness.
starving, I challenge you to starve yourself and then
Yeah.
see your energy output, right? To run back and forth for hours like this dog does, right? This dog's level of activity in itself is a sure sign of her health. If you knew about that dog and you saw that dog just going, you would have to conclude that that dog is in great shape.
Yeah, he's in great shape. He's like a number one athlete.
Exactly.
She,
Exactly.
man.
That's what these dogs were bred to be. They were bred to be canine athletes, right? Much the same way you see I'm a big fan of boxing and what they call the pugilistic science. You see a guy like Terrence Bud Crawford, right?
Oh, I like that guy. He reminds me of Julian Jackson.
Right, exactly. Julian Jackson was a beast now. That was one of the hardest hits that sport has ever seen. Now, the guy he was fighting was Errol Spence Jr. And I looked at Errol Spence Jr. when he was commenting on his conditioning program. And he said he had begun to train in high altitudes. Well, this is something that Bud Crawford has been doing for years. It's been since forever. But knowing that they were going in against this man, they said, well, we got to do some high altitude training as well.
They were
talking about. I looked at Errol Spence talking about this high altitude training, and I'm looking at this man and I'm saying, you know what? He doesn't look as it looks like that high altitude training is taking its toll on him. And this
it's dying down. It's true.
I said, man, he does not look right. He looks gone, right? His face was sucked
psychologically shaken.
Were very pronounced. And all this says to me that you tried to basically Bud Crawford beat them in the training regimen before the fight.
Before the fight.
They had to implement what he was doing in order for them to compete with him. And so that in itself told me that they had already lost. Told me in itself they had already lost. And when you hear the interviews after the fact, Bud Crawford said it clearly. He said, man, that man wasn't as strong as y'all say he was. By the first round, I knew it was over. By the first round, I knew I had him. That's deep. Right. That's very deep. Because a fight of that magnitude, they said that was the most competitive fight that boxing had seen in 40 years. Right? They said that was the biggest fight, especially in that division, in 40 years.
I tell you, everywhere, I think universally we were watching that fight. Even in East Africa, they were watching the fight. Yeah, that fight really, really hit every corner.
I'm not surprised. It really did. It really did. Now, let me ask you something. And this is a little bit off topic, but it definitely deals with conflict, we'll call it. What has been the UK political position on the situation in West Africa, where they just deposed the president of Niger, and the military stepped up and basically took control of the government reins? What is the UK political position there?
Repeat it, Regin. The flipping live, it cut out. Say it again. I just caught up from the military.
So in West Africa, in the country of Niger, the military stepped up and they got rid of the president. They arrested the president on high treason charges and removed him from office.
Oh my Lord.
It has caused quite a stir around the world. And when I say quite a stir, France threatened to invade Niger and kind of take back the country or restore the constitutional order. Only to find out that France has held a colonial rule over Niger ever since its so-called independence. In fact, there are 14 countries in West Africa that France holds these shackles over.
That's right. Yes.
So what's happening now is that the country of Niger, the country of Burkina Faso, the country of Mali, the country of Guinea, they have all had these coups d'etats in the last couple of years to get rid of these presidents that are deemed puppets of the West, particularly of France. And so part of the problem is that they've done so, and Russia and China have stepped up to support their positions. So what's happening is you have all of these countries in the West, particularly France, NATO, right, and all of their puppets in West Africa, and they're posing to invade Niger. But Niger now has backing from Burkina Faso, now has backing from Mali, now has backing from Guinea, and a couple of other states in the area. And they're all being backed by Russia and China. Can you see where this is going?
I do. I definitely do. It looks like back in the day.
Right. We have another Cold War going on, and just
believe me, beloved, there is. It's serious. Many of them have to give. Many of them are guilty. Many of them, listen, many of them refused when it was time to agree. Many of them took counsel, and many of them planned against the motherland.
They're still doing it. They're still doing it. As far as they're concerned, this is something that they have a right to do, right? Come to find out, when they granted these countries their independence back in 1960, they also made them sign something called the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. And so how can you give a country their independence while making them sign an agreement to be continually colonized? So what we find is that France is literally taking 50% of African monetary reserves and forcing them to deposit it with the French central bank, with the Central Bank of France and the French Minister of Finance. And the conclusion was that some $14 billion was taken out, deposited by France into their local stock market. And now you have a situation where they're reaping hundreds of billions of dollars off these African reserves. They're mining uranium, right, in countries like Niger and right. And that uranium is going to supply electricity to France when 80% of the people in Niger don't have any electricity. But all the uranium is coming from their country. So I was curious if you'd heard anything about these things, or what the UK position was, because I haven't heard much from Great Britain on any of these matters. America and Great Britain have maintained relative silence, right? Where France has been threatening to invade and dragging NATO into the fight as well. So that's just something that I always keep an eye on the continent. I always keep an eye on what's going on there, because our brothers and sisters in the military here in the diaspora
Can you hear me, Brett?
end up dead smack in the middle of this conflict. So you have brothers and sisters from the diaspora filling up the military ranks of the European nations, and they're going to be sent over to Africa to do battle with West African military powers. And when you study the history of the Middle Passage and the Atlantic slave trade, you find that a great majority of the captives that were taken from West Africa. So literally,
Exactly.
people of the diaspora going against their brothers and cousins.
Yes, definitely. The wheel has definitely reversed, and the great diaspora or the great reparation crew or those who are claiming this thing, it's to me it's quite cynical as well as quite
It is. It's absolutely bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. It's one of those things that it bothers me even that
what I call create. Yeah, even my motherland, in Ethiopia, obviously the East, we didn't have what we call slavery, but we had severe starvation and severe oppression going
right,
way back,
right.
and sorry, say it again.
They were more I guess almost tolerant, right, of Ethiopia, in a sense that they set up colonial rule, right, but not necessarily they imposed their way of life on the country, right? Whereas in other areas of Africa, they just literally took the land, right? You couldn't even see a dark face in power anywhere. So that was definitely something I took note of as well.
Booby traps or stronger honeyness. They will always they always came to us with that stronger backup. And their defense wasn't what we say France or anything, but a lot of their underground was the Romans. A lot of it was the Portuguese
Right,
influence in the land of Ethiopia. And if it wasn't for, so to say, Great Britain, being able to lend the ear, I think maybe Amsterdam or in Kathmandu, you understand?
right, right,
And they always had that way, even looking back in certain books, Brethren, on the panel, they always had that way of putting, I don't know if it was fear or psychological oppression on those in low places. And those in those places is like that used to ricochet into those in high places. So even though we had our kingdoms and we had our little communities up and strong, but when it came against, say, we tried the Battle of Adwa, Menelik, Queen Azana, Queen Taitu, we tried, but the reality was, as you said, just like going back to the dog in our tongue, the dog is whoosha. If what is before us isn't strong, we don't have a strong chance unless we form a solidarity. And many of our animals were wiped out, the dog, the ant, the spider, the fish, many of them were wiped out, and poisoned along the way. And if it wasn't for the women, the sisters of the time to find that solidarity, I don't think we would have the flag we have today. It would be overthrown. Even it has been overthrown.
It's funny. The brother Inquisitive Jin said Western civilization is dying a slow death. And I think nothing exemplifies that more than the financial situation of the United States, right? Where it used to have the dominant currency in the world, that's no longer the case, right? You have many countries. In fact, Ethiopia just requested to join the BRICS nations, right?
Yes.
Brazil, what is it? Brazil, what is the I can't believe that escapes me right now. But it's Brazil, something, India, China, and South Africa. And what they're proposing to do is divest from the US dollar and start holding their currency in
countries. You have Brazil, you have these countries, especially Britain. You know, Britain laid like a half red carpet, just a half. And, you know, many of them, you know, they've gone to these other countries like Brazil. There's a big influx of us in Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
well,
Italy, not much because we're a different tribe, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting because the Italian prime minister blasted the French president because she said there's an influx of Africans migrating from the continent into the European countries illegally. And the reason that these mass migrations are taking place is because the Africans are having a difficult time surviving in their own country. Why are they having such a difficult time surviving in their own country? Because all of their mineral resources are being mined and shipped into the European nations for manufacturing and processing. So the job of digging it out of the dirt, you know, is falling on African children. You know, you got kids going down into these cobalt mines. Cobalt is the chief mineral that's used in our cell phone batteries.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah, the cobalt.
And our electric cars and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. This whole green revolution, so-called, is really destroying Africa. And it's impacting Africa in such a way that the original industries that the people had, the original way of life that the people had, whether it be fishing, herding, farming, that stuff is being disrupted. It's being destroyed by the pollution, by the land grab, you know. So these people are literally, you know, their whole way of life has been upset, but then there's nothing to replace their way of life.
That's right. There's nothing to replace that. Nothing.
It'd be different if you had factories, right? It'd be different if you built factories and manufacturing plants so that when the minerals came out of the ground, they could be processed there in Africa and the people would have jobs processing this stuff. That's not the case. Because the real money is in making the finished product in Europe and then selling it back to Africa.
Yeah, double standard and bootleg.
It's absolutely bizarre. Rob Keener says America is too busy giving all of our money to Ukraine to comment on Africa.
Those people are bloody Polish. They're bloody from the land of Belarus.
Right.
But anyway, excuse me.
I mean, you make a very legitimate point.
Those people are national Nazis. They're the original neo-Nazi. Don't let them fool you. Excuse me.
There's a part of Ukraine that is absolutely in rebellion against its own quote-unquote government. And
look what they done to their woman. Look what they done to their woman.
What happened there? From what I know, they have this these people are just, they've sworn off government, period. They said they've been in that area holding themselves down for so long, they no longer need any government. They're happy living this anarchist lifestyle, right? And,
yeah.
So Russia is literally saying, listen, these are the people that we're going in to correct. Whereas America giving all of its attention and support to Ukraine is really just fighting that same old Cold War against the Soviet Union. It's not called the
Ah,
Soviet Union anymore. They call it Russia now, right? But at the end of the day, it really is the Cold War all over
yeah,
again, right?
yeah.
Russia and China have held hands. That's the same
Mm.
old quote unquote communist bloc that existed back when the African Revolution took place on the continent, right? When you had the
See?
Kwame Nkrumahs and all of these people.
Yes, in truth.
My major concern is that it's the brothers and sisters who are here who are not fully aware of that situation and all of its implications, who are going to be
Mm.
put on the front line to go and point their rifles at African men, women, and children, right? And we
But
know
they
that
must be
these
aware of what
Europeans,
entails them joining the army.
we know that these European nations, they don't fight a clean war, right? They don't look to attack military personnel. They try to bomb the women and children and the civilians in order to subdue a country. And so when they accuse, the Hutu and the Tutsi of genocide and ethnocide and all of this kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I find it very interesting because they are the progenitors of this type of behavior.
That's right. Yes, I.
These
Redstone.
people never had this mentality to do this to one another before European intervention. And that is a sad but true fact. These people, they're getting their military and monetary support from guess who? European nations,
Mm.
right? They claim that the gold is dirty, the diamonds are bloody, blood diamonds and dirty gold and, all of this kind of stuff.
They like
But
to mix words to make their own spells. They need a damn.
they are the very ones who literally provide the market for these blood diamonds and this dirty gold and, whatever else is going on. Inquisitive Jin says this is just the second scramble for Africa. If you ask me, a second expulsion of the Moors coming in Europe when they get tired of the black-brown immigration. Brother, it's already taken place. Even in Saudi Arabia, there was a recent a report that the Saudi guards fired on, I think, 60-something migrants, African migrants, and basically killed them on the spot. Right? Because these people were trying to escape the poverty in their own country. When instead, if you gave them their just due, if you gave them what belongs to them, then there would be no reason for them to leave their country. I worked with a brother from Sudan, and he loves his country. He's crazy about his country, but he's here in America because he had to leave because of the war-torn situation there. The situation with Gaddafi, right? The West is now admitting they actually had a CIA, a guy who was a CIA operative who wrote a book, and he admitted, he says, getting rid of Gaddafi was probably the worst thing that the Western European nations could do, because what it allowed was Islamic insurgents to those who are, I guess we would call them extremists in their views, because you have
Yes,
you have so much of Africa and West Africa that are adherents to the religion of Islam, but then you have those who say, well, you must live Islam this way. If you get caught stealing, your hand must be chopped off. If the man and the woman come together and they are not under the marriage bond, they must be flogged. And they make public displays of these amputations, even executions, right? And so while I have myself studied Islam. I have family members, right, that are adherents to the religion.
Their foundation, because
I
even
would
now it or
never,
pants. But it's
right,
true because in our culture, women don't wear pants.
and that's to be respected. The problem being that when you try to force other people who are not adherents to your religion to live under your religious law, now we've got a problem, right? So they are insisting, these extremists, they are insisting that everyone, regardless of who they are, come under Islamic law, which is called Sharia. Well, I
Yeah,
don't. If I'm
exactly.
Islam, right? If my daughter is not an adherent to the religion of Islam, or my mother is not an adherent to the religion of Islam, why must she be bound by their laws and ideas of what is legal and what is proper and just? So it is this dictatorship of ideas. Okay, Louisiana Candles in the building. Yo, what's good with you, brother? Barry Swindle says this is called imperialism. So, and it is very true, regardless of whether it's from a European nation
It's
or
true.
an Islamic fundamentalist group. If you are trying to take over someone else's way of life and force your culture upon them, it's imperialism, right?
Yeah.
And that is not freedom, right? That is not a freedom to live and a freedom to choose. And so in many of these West African states, what has happened once Gaddafi was literally the hand that kept these insurgents from taking over. When they got rid of Gaddafi, it gave the insurgents free reign. Now the very foundations of government are being threatened by these insurgents. And they've made it clear. Paris, London, America, we're coming for you. They've made it very clear. They're in Africa right now, but they've made it very clear. Listen, we're not going to stop until everybody is under this Islamic rule, under this Islamic law.
Fire burn. They have to bring back the old punishment. It's very terrible stuff.
I'll tell you something that really pained me to my heart. The doggone people of West Africa are probably the most, I don't know, I just have to say they're one of the most sacred people, right? Because they have a history, they have a culture, a way of life that has been able to map the stars and give an accurate layout of celestial bodies of the heavens. But they are not Western scientists trained, right? This has been in their culture since time immemorial. It's been passed on generation to generation. They are currently at war with the Fulani people.
See it there?
Right?
Yeah.
Because the Fulani are, I believe, herders, and the Dogon are agriculturalists. Because the Fulani can't venture into certain areas because of the Islamic insurgents, then they allow their cattle to basically graze on the agricultural lands of the Dogon. And so here we have Africa fighting Africa because of somebody else's imperialism. In the Sudan, it's again Arab imperialism being posed on, right? The Nuba and other indigenous cultures of Southern Sudan. So the problem only exacerbates when you have a European nation like France saying, okay, you West African countries, 50% of everything you make, right? you can't have any military allies, or you can't purchase military equipment from anybody but France. France has been very hands-on in a lot of the coups d'etats, right? A lot of the government revolts that have gone on over the last 40 to 50 years, simply because they insist that all military personnel, their military officers in West Africa, be trained in France. So once they've literally stolen your children away mentally, right, they've indoctrinated, because anybody in the military will tell you it's an indoctrination. You're fed this, fed this, and you have to eat it until you eat, sleep, and breathe it. And when they grow tired, or there's a particular African president who may be in power, who's not in agreement, right, with the aims of the West, with the aims of French imperialism and French colonialism, then they literally send in these French trained African officers to do away with that person. Thomas Sankara was a perfect example, and he's probably the most recent of a great many. So the whole situation has really become something that is it threatens the livelihood of every human being on earth. Because when Russia and China start holding hands, and then NATO and France and that group are bumping heads with your Russia and China, and what eventually looks like it's going to become the BRICS nations, right? Brazil is going to be included in that, possibly. You have a situation on your hands that's going to get pretty ugly, right?
Yeah.
Brazil, China.
You're gonna get 10 Dobermans.
Who's going to be left out of that? Nobody's going to be left out. We're all going to be called to take a position on one side or the other. Right? I myself, I consider myself a Black man who ultimately hopes to do business in Africa. And that is because I see Africa as being in the same position that China was in, say, a mere 30 or 40 years ago.
Oh, yes.
Remember, China was the hub of global manufacturing, right?
Yes, everything.
It was because labor was extremely cheap, right? They talked about the Chinese sweatshops and all of this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, what the Chinese were doing, and I've literally done business with some of these people, they were literally working hard, getting their pennies, and saving every dime of it. While America was literally ladening their population with debt, encouraging student loans, encouraging consumer loans, encouraging real estate loans. All of this kind of stuff literally became a nation of debt. So we wonder why America as a government is always in a position that it needs to raise its debt ceiling, right? It needs to, America as a nation is always at the point where it's over budget, right? It always needs to raise the debt ceiling, and the government is threatening to shut down because it can't pay its employees and all of this kind of stuff, because they have encouraged debt just ceaselessly, right? Repetitively. Debt, student loan debt, car loans, housing debts, you name it. America is a house of cards financially. And now you see it beginning to collapse. Now you see other nations of the world that used to hold their currency in American dollars, they're now saying, no, thank you. we're not going to hold our currency in American dollars no more. We think the Chinese yuan is safer. That's a dangerous proposition. So you see, America is losing its foothold economically on the world stage, and with Africa slowly coming to the forefront, with African leaders slowly getting wise to the fact of Western imperialism and Western colonialism. There was a president from Uganda, Museveni.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, he gave a speech recently. He says, you know, a few years back, an American company, an American mining company, came to Uganda and wanted to mine the uranium from Uganda. And he said to this, this mining company, he says, well, for what purposes would you be mining uranium in Uganda? And they said for exportation, right? So they want to get the minerals from the ground and send it out of Africa, right? They want to sell it abroad to all of the other nations. And so his response to them was, have you heard a rumor, perhaps, that this uranium, which is good for electricity and nuclear reactors, and even for some health purposes, it's used in certain medicines. Have you heard a rumor that there are people here in Uganda who maybe could use some electricity, who perhaps don't have electricity and access to this healthcare, etc. And the mining company said, well, you know, we may have heard a thing or two about that. And so Museveni said, well, okay, would you be opposed to us using that uranium here in Uganda first, and then what we have left over, we would happily share with you for your exportation to the rest of the world? He said they left and never came back. And that's very telling. That's very telling. Because me as a Black man trying to do business in Africa, I'm looking to say, you know, how can this benefit not only myself, but the people of Africa, right? I want to see their lives improve. To me, it's illogical that I live in a house or I live on land where I can grow all my own food, and somebody else comes, they don't even live on my land, but they come and take my food and they sell it at market, make a profit while me and my family starve. What sense does it make, right? It doesn't make any sense at all. No one here on this panel, right? No one here in this chat would literally allow someone to walk in their home, take their food, and then feed somebody else with it while they themselves and their family and their children starve, right? Most of us that keep these kinds of dogs, these American pit bull terriers and these hunting dogs, we have a certain temperament, right? We have a certain outlook. Like, you're not going to come in here and take anything without a challenge.
Yeah, it must be mad.
It surprises me that these Western nations expect, and these Western countries, the corporations expect these African countries to go along with this type of a paradigm. Now, to be fair, we cannot place all the blame at the feet of the Western imperialists, because we have had African leaders who were exceedingly greedy. We've had African leaders who fell.
It's like they prepare for visitors, but they don't feed their own. Some of those cultures, you know, they used to even foreigners go to their country and they make the young girls put on these beads and wind up their body. You know, where we come from, you get two beatings, you know, and, you know, the households starve and they must use the toilet outside, and the guests would use the toilet inside and eat many kinds of meat and luxury, You know, to me, it's insanity. It's madness.
It absolutely is. It absolutely
True, in
is.
the West, we're spoiled. You know, everything in the West over here in London is in front of you. But at the same time, you have to find that kind of discipline to say, okay, I don't need it, you know, instead of just taking, indulging, because when they look, they've got no money. They've got no money left, and they wonder why they're broke like a church mouse, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then they want to reverse that psychology and say, oh, come to our cult or come to our religion and pretend to fast, even though we're not really fasting. And twice a year, we have a
Mm.
big feast. But
Right.
where is that going to? That money is not going back to their roots and culture or going to the orphanages.
Exactly.
Going to, and that excess, that excess food. Really, we've been doing these things from the day I was born, you know,
The intelligent
traditionally.
Jim, he asks, are they following Islam or Arabic culture?
Babylon.
They are following the Arabic culture. And that's plain
Mm,
as day. What most people
yeah.
don't realize is that the European inherited the transatlantic slave. Well, they inherited the African slave trade from the Arabs. The Arabs
Mm-hmm.
were extremely instrumental in trading in African lives. And this is
Mm,
even recorded in the history of the Prophet Muhammad, who is the prophet of Islam, right?
mm,
It is said that the one that was the call to prayer, the one Bilal, his name was Bilal, he gave the call to prayer. And when Muhammad
yeah.
prayed, Bilal was the one who was designated to stand right behind Muhammad, right? And so it was said that when they found Bilal, they had to free him from slavery. They had
Yes.
to free him from his Arab slave masters who were trying to force their ideology and their way of life on him. They said they had the man tied out in the hot desert sun, right? Spread eagle on the desert sands with the sun beaming down on him. And they said they repeatedly took a boulder and dropped it upon his chest,
Mm,
trying to force him to acknowledge their way of life or force him to acknowledge their ideology. And his only
mm-hmm.
response was Ahad, 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 which is one, right? There is one God, there is one God, there is one God. So Muhammad was known to say of Bilal that he saw the footsteps of Bilal preceding his, going before his footsteps in the paradise.
Mm,
That is to say that he saw Bilal entering paradise even before himself. That is to say that in the heavenly life, Bilal would be the leader and Muhammad would be the follower. See, when you actually interpret these traditions in exactly in the language in which they're offered, then it sheds a whole new light on it, right? We know that Muhammad himself, when he began to preach his message in Arabia, his followers were under threat. And
that's
his
right.
response was to send them not to Iran or to Iraq or to Syria or
Oh,
to any of those places. He sent his followers to a king in Ethiopia.
that's right. King Izana, Exabiher Yemesgen.
This tells you in itself that Muhammad was very familiar with the culture and the ideology, the belief system in Africa, and he knew that this king would grant his people asylum. He knew that this man, this righteous man, would grant his people asylum. That king was literally the first savior of Islam. But you won't hear that in the Arab traditions. You won't hear
Yeah,
them
they
talk.
wouldn't tell them. They don't tell them the truth. Anything to do with the truths and rights,
That's right.
banish and bank it. But you know, the Lion of Judah shall break every chain. and give us a victory again and again. Exabe her yemes again.
So to answer the question of Inquisitive Jinn, are they following Islam or Arabic culture? I would have to say they are following Arabic culture.
Mm-hmm.
The Arabic culture is known for degrading women, for demeaning women, subjugating women. It's really it's one of those things that really poses a serious problem.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a comment here. Rob Keener said, we killed Gaddafi. I know it's spelled wrong. That's all right. Because he was starting an African dollar with other African countries and not participating with the U.S. centralized bank. That is absolutely correct. Gaddafi proposed a United States of Africa that would operate under a single currency. All 54 nations of Africa come together as one nation under one currency. And that currency was to be backed by the natural and mineral resources of Africa.
Yes.
Now, think about what this does. It totally upsets the apple cart of what they call the central banking system, because the US dollar has been separated, right, from the gold standard, I believe, since 1976, or maybe even before. I forget whether it was Nixon or somebody after him that did it. But the US dollar is not something you can have $100,000, go to the US Treasury and say, hey, I'd like to exchange this $100,000 for gold. And they will tell you no, that money is, that paper is currency enough, and that is the accepted currency now. Like there is no gold backing the US dollar anymore. So if you have a currency in the world that is actually backed by a true viable natural resource, whether that be gold, whether that be cacao, whether it be rice, Africa is in a position to really upset the apple cart of the world economy if they would have gone to this idea that Gaddafi had of a single African currency backed by hard resources. So, I mean, it's definitely one of those things that I, and I apologize to my bulldoggers because I definitely got sidetracked with this thing, but it's been on my mind a lot lately. I have a lot of young people that are near and dear to me, and I don't want to see them sent off to war to fight their own uncles, brothers, cousins, sisters, like their nieces, nephews, and their aunties. The brother Samurai is in the Air Force, I believe. Samurai Kennels, he's in the U.S. Air Force. Can you imagine, him being given the order to go fly over Senegal, or well, Senegal is kind of on the ECOWAS side, but to fly over a nation like Guinea or Mali and start dropping bombs, right? So he's gonna drop bombs on the Doggone. He's gonna drop bombs on the right. He's gonna drop bombs on the Fulani, on the Igbo, on the Ife, on the Maasai, on the Hausa. This is not right. This is not right. If I sit here and I trace my DNA, I'm pretty sure it's going to come up somewhere on the continent, right? And that's most of us. We may not know exactly where we came from, but man, this is not, how can this be just and proper? The major turning point, what's going on in Africa now, is the youth. It is the young people who have educated themselves, who are informed about these forms of neo-colonialism and these imperialistic tactics, And they're standing up to say, well, you know what? We're not going to have it anymore. I don't care how long you've been president. If you haven't done something with your presidential tenure in the last 10 to 15 years, it's time for you to go. Make room for the young people who understand what's going on in the rural regions, the regions that are out of reach of the central government. Far too many African leaders have been satisfied with the West showing up with a fat paycheck for their pockets alone. The president and his cabinet, they benefit, but all the others, but the other people in the outlying parts of Africa, they're left with nothing. Literally nothing. Their way of life is uprooted by the mining companies and these oil digging companies. From what I understand, not Mozambique, not South Africa. Oh my gosh, what country is this? Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe, Rhodesia.
They just discovered oil in Zimbabwe. And so the US is really looking at a situation where they don't even have a foothold in Africa anymore. The Chinese have made billions of dollars in loans. They've given billions of dollars in aid. They're building roads and infrastructure in Africa where none existed prior to that. The Russians, right? Putin just went on record as forgiving $23 billion of African debt. $23 billion to be loaned to Africa that they'll never have to pay back.
The Great Prussia must rise.
Right. So as you see these Western and these European and other powers, these imperialist powers vying against each other, the central playing field is the African chessboard. And the more African leaders come into the realization of this, or the more the African people, right, the grassroots people come into the realization of this, the quicker they are now to say to their leaders, listen, stop being a puppet, start acting in Africa's best interest, or get the hell out of office. They're not playing. They're not playing anymore. I think France had demanded of the 14 countries that were once its colonies that they made sign that pact of for the continuation of colonization. 14 of those countries, they imposed French as the official language of the country.
Yeah, in truth, yes.
You have to be educated in the French language. You have to. French has to be taught in the schools. This is the official language of your African nation. That makes sense. And so I believe it was Malawi and a couple of others. They said, well, guess what? French is no longer the official language of our nation.
Our mother tongue must stand.
They are moving toward, there's a movement towards Swahili possibly.
Oh, but Swahili, sorry, Bridget, Swahili is a stent of the French tongue.
It's Arab based. It's Arabic. I'm not going to say Arabic based. It's really it's a smattering of, I guess, the East African, the French, and the Swahili. It's literally a man-made language.
It's not Aramaic.
Right. So
yeah,
Africa is looking to move towards Swahili as a unifying language because so many of the people already speak it, right? And it sort of ties east to west, north to south, and it would provide that common ground, that common way of communicating across cultures. So it's definitely something that the single African nation, right? They're no longer speaking
Mm.
on Africa as a continent. They're speaking
Mm.
on Africa as a single, basically a single country, right? They want to bring all of Africa
Mm.
together as a single country.
Mm.
Museveni, who originally sold Gaddafi out, Museveni was responsible for selling out Gaddafi. And he was originally against this idea of United African Nations, is now a proponent of the concept. So it just goes to show you things are coming full circle.
Yes, what song?
It is it's one of those things that we have to really, really as
Appreciate love.
right. As Africans in the diaspora, we have to be acutely aware of what's going on. And that was kind of
Mm.
my question, whether or not you'd heard anything kind of on the political level from government officials in the UK, and then more so on the grassroots level. What are the Africans in the diaspora of London and the like provinces, if you will, of England? How are they reacting to this? What is their viewpoint? Although I know many of them are more East African than West African.
Yes, give thanks, Virgin. In truth, yeah, looking in from out, well, politically, it's not really raised as a concern like that, because obviously England
I'm sorry, you dropped out a minute there, sis. You said it's not really raised as a concern.
West African honest, I think they're all lost. If you ask them when was the last time they actually trotted back home and they
Mm,
invested in something in their motherland, they're very abstract and they're quick to pick up, as Brother Barry Swindle says, the Chinese business, the Chinese hair. They even want to learn the Mandarin. I know parts of the Caribbean, they're pushing this Mandarin business. But the
right,
majority, those that behold these so-called faces or these nationals, a lot of them, they're so asleep and very afar. Even the other day, I went into a shop called Primark that sells like cheap material stuff in retail, and I was so surprised. Majority of the people on the till, they speak Amarinya,
wow,
and I said to them, Inja Patasha, Denanej. And they laughed and they said, well, we have to try and scrape what is left. And in reverse of that, the West Africans, the majority of them, they're still busy being parking attendants, road sweepers, and bus and
right,
them, since they've come over here, they've forgotten their roots and culture, even through the bleaching of the skin, trying to look.
right,
They're so asleep. When you try to reason with them, the first thing they say is, oh, eh. In other words, like they're not interested, or even they would tell you, who are you? Who am I? You're mad. I know more than what you are. I want to know where your mindset is. As I said, a lot of them, they're so afar in this Chinese Moab hair wearing and busy being a trainer or a parking attendant. They're not interested in the great Niger or the great Fulani or the Ibu or whoever you, even the Queen Mohomuso of the great Sierra Leone and
right,
Malawi and places like that. When they say, oh, these countries have been flooded with devastation, they're busy in the hand clap church. They're not coming to the Orthodox. They're in the Pope Paul church, giving away all their money, and they forget the needy.
You know, that it's very interesting that you mentioned that. I recently became aware of a move by Israel to deport some of the people, for lack of a better term, that they call Black Hebrew Israelites, right? And it was almost devastating to listen to, because here it is, they're deporting these people who have made their whole lives there, right? They are heavily invested in the culture of Torah and the entire lifestyle, and they've literally picked up roots. They've moved, you understand, with this concept of going home to Zion, right? And here Israel is now saying, well, we have to make room for Ukrainians, so you got to go. Have you heard about that? Sister dropped out on us again. It's all right. It's all right. Let's go ahead and get into some of these comments. Barry Swindle said China's got Africa now. China's definitely in Africa. I wouldn't say they have Africa. But you have to keep in mind that China is literally 1 billion plus strong. They could easily amount to at least 25% of the world's population right now. So China's not just in Africa, they're in the West too. And nothing drove that point home more to me than when I moved here to this area of upstate New York where I am. I came here to get into the real estate market. And when I got involved in the real estate market, my very first client was an American man and his Chinese wife. This white male American, this white American male was actually in debt. He was deep in debt, and it was the Chinese wife that literally, I guess she was a millionaire by Chinese standards in China. She had run her own business there. She was an entrepreneur, and she had moved to Canada. She held real estate and accounts in Canada, and then moved here to upstate New York and began to acquire real estate here. And I was quite instrumental in helping her build that portfolio. It was very interesting to see that was cash coming over, right? They weren't purchasing property with loans. They were purchasing with cash, right? And that brings me back to my earlier point that while China was being looked at as the sweatshop capital of the world, the cheap labor capital of the world, the Chinese people themselves had the ethic of saving a dollar or saving a yuan, if you will. They were literally stacking their paper until they were in a position to come to America. And right after the even during the real estate crash of 2008 and subsequent to that, the Chinese were buying American assets that were deeply indebted and being foreclosed on. The Chinese were snatching that stuff up with cash, like by the boatloads. So it's not just in Africa where they've levied their resources, right? It's not just in Africa at all. In fact, if you really do a good YouTube search, you'll find a whole lot of stuff about what China owns in America, here in America, right? So you can't fault a nation for coming from the bottom, right? It's like a good pit match. You see he's the down dog now, and the next thing you know, that dog is on top. and the dog that was the top dog is fading. He's starting to get that far away look in his eyes, like he ain't sure he really want to be here no more. And that down dog is starting to, he done came from the bottom, and now he's starting to see, guess what? I got this. He can't hang no more. And whether you like it or not, that is exactly enough. That is exactly what happened with China. You know, China has levied their resources all across the world. All across the world. It is not a game. It's not just Africa. It's not just the Caribbean. It's in Canada. It's in America. It's in Europe. It's in South America. Like they are literally the world's economic superpower right now. You know, very few people are willing to concede that. But if you look at the history of China, if you look at the history of their dynasties, prior to communism and all of that, prior to the Opium Wars, even, you will see that China has never been much of an entity to take lightly. They've always been on their stuff. They took a little L for a minute, you know, through World War II and the Japanese invasion and et cetera, et cetera. But I used to say that the Chinese are known to work like a Mexican, save like a Jew, and literally stay humble through the whole process. Quietly humble. You didn't see them making a whole lot of noise. They educated their children. Children were going to school, I think, I forget, 8 hours a day or something, or you know, something between 8 and 12 hours a day. Like we've all heard the stories of the Chinese math geniuses that we grew up with as kids and all of that. Like it's very real. They stayed disciplined. They stayed down, and they never wavered from their course. They are where they are for a particular reason. Not that I condone a lot of what's going on in Africa. Some of these Chinese companies are as bad, if not worse. Well, I'll say that many of them are as bad as the Europeans. Many of them are as prejudiced, as discriminating, and as derisive of Africans as Europeans have proven to be. So they don't get a pass by any stretch of the imagination, but their example is instructive, right? And I'll leave my comment on China's Got Africa Now. I'll leave that there. Barry Swindles also says the Chinese were producing. Yes, they were. They were showing up with a check in hand saying, listen, things is rough around here. We'll build a road. You know what I mean? We'll connect this part of Africa with that part of Africa where there wasn't any before. You know, we can provide some electricity here. We can build a power plant here or there. So the Chinese have definitely done a great deal more to develop Africa than in the short time that they've been there than Europe has done, obviously, in the last, you know, since the 1880s, even the 1860s. If you want to get technical, going back to the 14 and 1500s. So yes, the Chinese are definitely producing, Barry Swindle. Shout out to you for that comment. Inquisitive Jing says you have collaborators in every conflict. If Russia was to invade the US today, a certain percentage of the country would go along with it. Hard to argue with. Hard to argue with. I mean, when you really study the situation in West Africa, it's Russia that's providing some of the military equipment that the West African governments are fighting the Islamic insurgents with, right? So the so-called jihadis, you know, they call themselves mujahideen. I don't believe, you know, jihad by strict definition is to strive or to struggle in the cause of Allah, right? In the cause of the Creator. Whereas the Quran says, let there be no compulsion in religion. Let there be no compulsion. Don't force a man to your way of life, to your deen, right? And so I have difficulty seeing them as mujahideen, as those who struggle in the cause of Allah, because Allah says in the Quran, let there be no compulsion in religion, and they seek to compel people to their religion and their religious law. So yeah, Inquisitive Jinn, you're absolutely right. There are plenty who will collaborate with Russia, even as you will have those who are already here who might collaborate with the Islamic extremists, right? Or the yeah, that's the only decent name I can come up with right now. And I make a staunch difference between an Islamic fundamentalist and an Islamic extremist, right? To me, a fundamentalist in Islam is simply one who observes the 5 pillars of Islam, which is that he declares, his faith in Allah and the prophethood of Muhammad. He performs the 5 daily salats. He or she performs the 5 daily prayers, right? He or she gives 2.5% of their surplus income in charity. He or she fasts during the month of Ramadan. And then he or she performs the pilgrimage to Mecca. Those are known as the 5 pillars of Islam. They are the fundamentals of that way of life. And there's nothing in there that says you compel another man to follow you or do what you want them to do or do as you do, right? So to me, that's a fundamentalist. They're following the fundamental. There's nothing wrong with being a fundamentalist, right? But being an extremist, yeah, that's an issue. The extreme in anything can always become problematic. Asiatic Soldier said, that's right, sister. Let me grab some more of these comments in here before we wrap up, y'all. Brandon Blue said, they're not sent to fight, they're not sent to fight, they are sent to kill. And that's absolutely correct. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to ask an Air Force pilot to get out of his plane, to land his plane, get out of his plane, put boots on the ground and go toe to toe with other soldiers of the opposing army. They're going to say, no, just go ahead. This is your target. This is where you're going to drop your bombs. Pardon one while I put baby girl away. Inside. Fat drink. Go drink. So, calm down. Fat is in heat, y'all, and Bo wants some of that. Man, it's a lot going on. Anyway, Rob said, good night, everyone. Wait a minute, hold on. Good night, everyone. I have to get some sleep. Very interesting live, Ray. Indeed it was. It you never know where these things are gonna go, man. You never know where these things are gonna go. I had an agenda. I had a whole, itinerary, if you will. But sometimes, man, I'm definitely believing letting things take a natural course. Inquisitive Jinn. Most people don't even realize that China owns half of the real estate in New York City. Yeah, very true. Very true.
Sure.
Okay, sis, we got you in. Yeah, you tend to freeze up on us, but it's all right. It's all right. Just keep at it. Keep scratching, as we say. Keep scratching. So, yeah, Inquisitive Jen, that's absolutely right. And it's not just in New York City, bro. I'm telling you, I helped these people build a portfolio in less than a year's time. In less than a year's time, I helped them build it wasn't a huge portfolio, but they were just one, right? That was one Chinese woman. Up here, we have property tax auctions. And when someone forecloses or someone fails to pay their property taxes, the county actually forecloses on the property and sells the property at an auction. Whereas in many other counties throughout the country, the county elects to sell what's called a tax lien certificate. So here where I am, they actually sell the property itself. And on more than one occasion, going to these property tax auctions, the winning bids were made by Chinese people with checkbook in hand. So it's all over the world, bro. It's not just like it's almost like they have an orchestrated agenda to buy up as much real estate around the world as they possibly can. And keep in mind, again, China could easily equal a quarter of the world's population. Easily. Party Boy Woods hopped in, said, "What's up, y'all? Good to see you in the building, bro." Brandon Blue said, "The FBI say all of that is the same." Yeah, the FBI, the CIA, and all of them other alphabet boys. Yeah, they definitely have an issue with all of this. They definitely do. What do they call it in Britain? In Britain, the MI6. I believe it's the MI6 in Britain. The Israeli Mossad in Israel. Lot going on. But I do want to say this, folks. We have hit 11:30. I had planned to do this live for about an hour and a half, which was supposed to be from 9 to 10:30. So, as usual, we've been going at it for a minute. I do want to.
It's an honor.
I'm sorry. Say it again, sis.
It's an honor to be in the live.
And we appreciate having you. You have sparked an international discussion here this evening. So your presence alone was definitely influential, and I appreciate it. And I hope you come back for our next live. We plan to do a live at least once a week. For my Bulldoggers, the next live I'm gonna try to keep it about the Bulldogs. But you have to understand, I have a combative nature by it's just who I am. I'm a dude, man, where whether it's a game of chess, whether it's boxing, whether it's the martial arts in terms of arts like Wing Chun and all of that, I'm always, there's something about the dichotomy, right, of conflict, right? That whole back and forth and what comes out of it, right? If you think about it, electricity is produced from just such conflict, right? Opposing forces coming together to produce something that we have found life in. And that's very much a part of my nature. Very much a part of my nature. So I follow these events around the world. I enjoy political science and political movements, as even the history of nations and geographical regions. I enjoy that stuff as much as I enjoy pushing a pawn on a chessboard. So, and speaking of that, what I'm gonna be looking to do going forward is developing another channel where we see some of these other aspects of my interests. I call the chessboard the war board, right? And we're going to be having a series called the Warboard Chronicles, right? And I'm going to be singling out a couple of guys, man, that I know really have a nice chess game, and we're going to be going head to head right in front of the camera. You know what I mean? No holds barred. So y'all get to see that if you're interested in that kind of stuff. And then it's Keep the Heat Media. And Keep the Heat Media is going to be directly related to what's going on in the world, what's happening on the African continent, what's going on with these geopolitical conflicts, what's going on with the socioeconomic upheavals of not just nations but individual populations, right? We're going to be discussing things like the effect of hip hop, right? Where it started and where it's at today, and how that's affecting our youth, right? How that's affecting our future or the future of Africans in the diaspora. All of these things are extremely, extremely important when you try to when you say that you're after a life of peace, unity, and brotherhood, right? Some type of love, right? Nobody wants anybody else's way of life forced upon them, and whether that's done consciously or whether that's done overtly or subversively, I'm a person that picks up on it all, you know what I mean, or picks up on a lot of it, I'll say. And so I'm going to definitely be giving some ear and some airplay to those ideas and those discussions. So for those of y'all who are definitely interested in that type of stuff, I think we definitely need to have those types of discussions. Inquisitive Jen says, I enjoy these deep socio-political discussions. We should have them more often. Diversifies the crowd and brings in new perspectives. Absolutely. You know, I have a real thing about how should I say, I have a thing about the problem. Within the problem lies the solution. I'll put it that way. For me, within the problem lies the solution. And so I have some ideas about how Africa can literally keep itself from ever becoming the puppet of any of these puppet masters, whether it be China, Russia, America, France, Europe in general, you know, whoever the offender may be or whoever the perpetrator may be. I believe Africa is the one nation that is in a unique position to restore value to world currency and world trade. Because right now it's all digital currency. It's all not even digital currency in the form of Bitcoin or any of that. Although Bitcoin was quite instructive in its own right, I believe that, again, it's something that was created out of cyberspace. It's something that only has value because somebody or some people say it has value. Whatever happened to currency being based on true natural resources? True resources, right? And I'm not talking about just gold, right? Why should Africa worry about mining for oil? Why should they worry about drilling for oil and all of these minerals that the West is interested in? Because gold and diamonds, although gold has a cultural value in Africa, it has never been much of a monetary means of exchange. That's fairly recent in the story of African culture and history. So I have some very definite ideas, right? There is no nation that is more rich than Africa in sunshine. whatever happened to us using solar energy, right, to provide electricity to the masses that don't have it? We don't need solar energy. Is not the complex industry, if you will, that oil is, right? Natural gas is. There's a lot that goes into that stuff, and you got to rely on, Africans have to rely on Western expertise and all of that kind of stuff. There's no need. The deserts themselves are wind farms waiting to happen, windmill farms just waiting to happen. Lake Victoria, right? And the Victorian Falls. That you talk about hydroelectric power, man, Africa's got it already. And there's really no need for outside intervention to help us, access these things, because we have them already. And so I would encourage African leaders, I would encourage the citizens of Africa to really begin to steer their leaders in the direction of the alternative sources of energy, the alternative alternate energy sources that would actually go a lot further than these Western and sort of synthetic type of creations and machinations. My brother Brandon Blue said Muay Thai is the best, or Muay Thai is the best. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it, man. The very first time I saw a Muay Thai kickboxer or Muay Thai fighter take out, this black belt karate dude, man, throwing all these fancy kicks. I don't know whether the karate kickboxer dude was studying Taekwondo or I believe it was Taekwondo. And he was real fancy with the head kicks and all of that stuff. But man, by the second round of that fight, man, it was over. He didn't have a leg to stand on. And the Muay Thai fighters, man, they are notorious for their ability to take punishment and dish it out, right? And of course, the American Pit Bull Terrier has become very popular in the land of the Thai. Sister Asifa says, wait a minute. I got to blow this up, y'all, because Amisa Ganashahu, which means thank you, and Salamnu, which means peace to you. Also the chat panel, I tend you the wisdom and universal perfect love. Absolutely, sister. Thank you for stopping in, and we appreciate your presence and your influence here on the board. Morning, afternoon, and night. Blessings. I texture and balance for all animals and dogs. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Victoria Falls. And then Amisaga Neshalhu. Amisaga Neshalhu. I think Amharic would definitely would be a viable option as a continental language. As a continental language. I think Amharic is right up there with Swahili as a viable option. With that, y'all, I'm gonna say peace and blessings. I gotta tend to these dogs, man, and make sure they get what they need. I appreciate all y'all stopping through, man. I appreciate y'all being with me during this diversionary topic here this evening. Hopefully going forward, we can establish a forum just for those discussions. It'll likely be on a completely different channel. I'm gonna keep Imperial Flame Kennels, and you know, we're gonna keep it pushing. You know, we're gonna keep bulldogging, we're gonna keep scratching. As the people here in the diaspora, we know what it means to be discriminated against. The American Pit Bull Terrier is currently experiencing that type of discrimination. As y'all see, they looked at my little dog, and you know, they just had a field day, you know, just bashing her. And she's in better shape. She's stronger, healthier, better conditioned than anybody who chose to make a comment. And that was really, really interesting to me. That was really interesting to me, because they don't see the goal. They don't see your strength. They don't see your power. They don't see you for who you truly are. All they see is the notions that they've been given, the preconceptions, the prejudgments, and the prejudices. So Asiatic Soldier says, Shalom, powerful live. Thank you, good brother. Thank you. Thank you. Good build as well, sister. Shalom. With that, yeah, let me go ahead and end this broadcast. If y'all have any questions for me, or y'all want to touch base with me about anything, man, feel free. You can reach me at my email, imperialflamekennels@gmail.com. That's imperialflamekennels@gmail.com. If you want to message me directly, you can also find me on Facebook under the same Imperial Flame Kennels, Instagram, Imperial Flame Kennels, and of course, right here on YouTube, Imperial Flame Kennels. Again, shout out to Asiatic Soldier for the $9.99 super sticker, that 10-piece. Believe it or not, folks, it goes a long way to doing a lot of little things, right? So do not be afraid to support your favorite Bulldogger channel. And I'm not just speaking for myself, right? There are plenty of people out here with good channels, man, offering up good content. And YouTube is not, you know, YouTube is a great way to begin the process of monetizing what we do, but YouTube is not solely to be relied upon. You know, this subject of the American Pit Bull Terrier really doesn't generate the millions and millions of views that YouTube rewards so handsomely, right? Even our content gets discriminated against at times. So, for example, we did the stick with Ghostface and Tata, and at the end of the day, I couldn't show you all those sticks. You know, I can post one picture, but I can't literally show you the video and do this kind of stuff on a live. So, you know, again, you know, there are limits, right? There's always limits. There's always some type of censorship. And when it comes to the American Pit Bull Terrier, although we understand the importance in some cases of tethering the dogs and using toe chain effectively and for security purposes, it's not something that's heavily rewarded, you know. So keep that in mind when you're visiting these channels. And you know, again, don't be afraid to support your favorite YouTube Bulldogger, whether here or on any other social media platform. And with that, I'm going to definitely say good night. And as Asiatic Soldier said, y'all keep the heat. Peace and blessings.